Hi, I'm going to read Chapter 2 in Treasure of Pelican Cove. A ball of clay. Jimmy caught up with Hiram at the end of the path. Blackie heard the whisper of sand kicked up by Jimmy's sneakers. He turned and stood still for a moment. Then his tail began to wag. "Blackie!" Jimmy said happily. The black dog broke into a run. He leapt up on Jimmy and licked his face. The two fell down in the sand together, rolling over and over. Then Jimmy jumped up and ran down the beach with Blackie at his side. The old man watched them run through the foam at the water's edge. At last he called them back. Jimmy and Blackie raced toward him. Jimmy stopped on the other side of Hiram to avoid the spray of water as Blackie shook himself. "Get, dog," Hiram said. "Shoo!" He turned to Jimmy, his eyes twinkling. "I see you haven't changed any." Jimmy was crestfallen. "I haven't?" Granny said Elizabeth Ann turned into a lady, and Paul is at least 3 inches taller than last year. And I did too change. I lost my front teeth, see? "I see," Hiram said. "Just don't be in such a hurry to grow up. You'll end up like old Black Jack." "Who's he? What happened to him? Was he a pirate?" Jimmy asked eagerly. "Well," Hiram said happily, "you could say so. Not that it did him any good. Why, once he—" Hiram stopped. Later. You run along now, son. I have work to do for your granny." "Tonight, Hiram?" Jimmy pleaded. "Will you tell us the story tonight?" "I reckon so," Hiram agreed. "I've got a tale that's been just itching to be told. If it's all right with your granny. Now run along." But Hiram's tale didn't get told. By late afternoon, the sky had turned a scuddy gray. Down on the beach, whitecaps raced the seagulls to land, and the pelicans huddled on the rocks. Hiram was busy making sure everything was tied down and safe before the storm broke. The children stayed with Granny. They went from room to room in the darkening house to watch the approaching storm. Granny brought out flashlights and candles and hurricane lamps. "Is it a real hurricane, Granny?" Jimmy asked. "Is it?" "No, Jimmy," Granny answered. "It's just a blow this time, like Hiram says." "Then can we go up on the Widow's Walk and watch the waves?" he asked. Granny hesitated. "Well, all right, for a little while I'll go with you." On the top floor was a tiny stairway. Granny took an old key out of her apron pocket. She put it in the lock and turned it. "The lock's getting rusty," she said. "Remind me to get Hiram to oil it." "Okay," Jimmy replied. He followed her onto the Widow's Walk. The wind whipped at their clothing and stung their eyes. "Whew," Granny said. "We can't stay up here for long." "Look, Granny," Jimmy said, pointing to the beach. "It's Hiram and Blackie." Granny gave a startling cry. "Why, Hiram's going down to the amusement park. Whatever would he be doing down there?" "He's after Blackie." Jimmy leaned over the rail to see better. Granny caught at him. "Don't lean so far over. Blackie will be all right. That dog is always up at the amusement park, chasing squirrels. There, Blackie heard him. He's coming back, Jimmy said. Look, Hiram's bringing him home. They watched for a minute as the old man and the dog struggled against the wind. Then Granny looked out at the sea. A wall of rain swept toward them. He'll just make it to his apartment over the garage if he hurries, she said. Come, Jimmy, let's go down. They locked the door carefully and went below. Paul and Elizabeth Ann were in the kitchen. Since the lights had gone off, the kitchen was lit by 3 lamps. The warm glow made the kitchen feel like a safe haven against the storm. Even the rain that had begun to slam against the windows only made the kitchen seem cozier and safer. They ate supper by lamplight. After the table was cleared, Granny brought her big Bible to the kitchen table. Jimmy looked at it in awe. It always surprised him that the Bible was as big as he remembered. What are we working on this summer? He blurted out. Granny raised her eyebrows. Working on? Mama always says we learn cat. He stumbled, trying to remember the word. Character, Elizabeth Ann said firmly. Yeah, character. Jimmy rolled the syllables around his tongue. We learn character every summer. Granny smiled. Well, we'll see. The children listened as she read. Her clear, light voice seemed to push back the noise of the storm. Jimmy sat very still. Before the time for devotions was over, his eyelids began to close. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't keep them open. His head slipped down against Elizabeth Ann's arm. He didn't open his eyes again. The next morning, the storm had passed. Granny and the children went down to the beach. They carried baskets to collect the wreckage that the storm had washed ashore. We're the first ones out, Elizabeth Ann said. It's like we're all alone in the world. Jimmy shook his head. Hiram beat us, look. Hiram and Blackie were down close to the amusement park. Jimmy watched as Hiram bent over and picked something up. Can I go with Hiram? He asked. Just meet us back at the house for breakfast, Granny said. Your tummy will tell you when it's time. Jimmy whooped and ran down the beach. Blackie met him, and they both trotted back to Hiram. Hiram showed him where to find big conch shells, starfish, and pale jellyfish. Jimmy sorted through barnacled driftwood, bits of chain, and scraps of fishing nets in search of a different kind of treasure. Soon his basket was full. Everyone went to Land's End to clean his catch. Some of it was put outside to dry and be cured. Some could be taken upstairs right away. Jimmy arranged his shells carefully on the bookshelf by his bed. What I need is one big shell, he thought, like the one Hiram found. I'll look after breakfast. After he had eaten, he went back to the beach. Blackie was down on the far end again. He ran toward Jimmy with something in his mouth. Hey, boy, Jimmy called. Bring it here. Blackie sat down in front of Jimmy. He dropped a brown ball on the sand and wagged his tail. Jimmy picked up the ball. A clay ball? Where did you find that? He asked. Blackie only wagged his tail. Want to play catch, huh? Jimmy said, picking up the ball. Okay, I guess a clay ball is as good as any other. Come on, Blackie. He and Blackie ran back and forth on the smooth, wet sand. Jimmy threw the ball and Blackie caught it. He brought it back to Jimmy again and again. The last time he brought it back, the ball was cracked. Uh-oh. Guess you chomped down too hard that time, Jimmy said. He picked at the ball. A clump of clay came loose. Hey, there's a rock in this, Jimmy said. Who would put a rock in clay? He pried the rock out. It was green and it glittered. Even through the dried smears of clay. It's not a rock, Jimmy whispered. He turned it over and over. It's a jewel.